ma'am?
Yes, Gopika, start.
Okay. Good afternoon, Vanarjol. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this third session of the second day of our 5-day online ATAL FDP on innovation and acquisition of intellectual property rights. Now, I invite Dr. Asha, Assistant Professor, IUCIPRS, to introduce the resource person. Ma'am, please.
So, again, I'm introducing ma'am. So, I'll be very brief. So, she received her BTech and MTech in Chemical Engineering from Usmania University and PhD from IISc Bangalore. She has 15 years experience in patent preparation and prosecution. And she worked in various law firms and institutions. And she received her JD and LLM from University of New Hampshire School of Law. And she was mentoring patent engineers and supervising the patent development team in Bangalore to ensure high quality patent applications. So she is a right person to deliver today's session. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Asha. I'll share my screen. Is visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Shall we? Okay. So morning we learned about different forms of IP. Now just let's see how do we register. Morning we just learned what are the requirements and what is the IP right. We defined what is patent. We defined what is copyright, which are all covered. And we also talked about what are the requirements for each one. Each IP right has a different criteria to be satisfied to get a registration. If you generally see across all the registered rights, for the first and important condition everywhere it should be new, novel. Some places we call it as new, some places we call it as novel, some places we say it should not be published. So basically, you should be the first one to do that. That's what we learned in the morning. Now, how do we register? What happens? Okay, now I'm ready with invention disclosure form. I went and talked to a patent professional. He drafted the patent application. Patent application is basically a techno-legal document, and the claims are most important features of the patent application. They define the metes and bounds of my invention. So I would take some help, some legal help. That's what we learned. Okay, right, all done. A patent application is ready with us. Now, how do we go about from there? Okay, so let's just look at the patent process. What do we do? As we all discussed in the morning, Murali was talking to us, right? First step, what we should do is prior art search or patentability search. What is prior art search? Prior art search is basically only novelty, whether anyone has done it or not. Patentability search is for finding out the inventive step. Inventive step is very subjective. Novelty is very easy. I told you, right? You have a claim and your claim has ABC. And we have a prior art document. It also has ABC, very clear. A, B, B, C, C. Existing, no novelty. Nothing to worry about. Novelty is very easy to overcome. The most difficult part is the second step, that is inventiveness. What is inventiveness or non-obviousness? In the US, it's called non-obviousness. In India, we call it as inventiveness. Basically, what is the step requires is a person skilled in art, it should not be obvious for him. Okay, I'm a chemical engineer. I came up with an invention. So two chemical engineers should not be able to think it easily. Okay, I don't ask a biologist. For biologists, it may be very novel, very inventive and all. But a person skilled in the art should say that, oh, it's very obvious. That is the inventive step. It's very, very subjective. It's a big argument with the patent office. Generally, we keep on arguing with the examiners, with the controllers, saying that, no, we are inventive. Examiner will say, no, you are not inventive. So that there are a lot of arguments goes on. So the first step in any patent application is prior art search or patentability search. Then we are happy, it's novel, it's inventive, at least according to our patent search, we are novel and we are inventive. So we'll go ahead and draft the patent application. Then we have to prepare the forms. There are some forms to be prepared and some fees have to be paid. All done. Then we file the patent application. Then what happens? We'll get the patent application will be published. After 18 months, it will be published in a patent gadget. If time permits, I'll show you the example. So it will be the patent application will be published. Then it will be examined. So we have done novelty search. We found some, but examiner also will do novelty search. Examiner also will come up with new document and he says, see, your patent is not patentable. It's not novel. He may come back with some certain documents. Then what do? We argue. We prepare an examination response, or we have in India, we have oral hearing. We have an opportunity to talk to the examiner and explain him again. That's called oral hearing. That is also done. And examiner is happy, you will get a patent grant. If examiner is not happy, it will be rejected. He says your patent is not granted. Once it is granted, we have to pay the patent fees. Keep in mind, just getting patent is not enough. We have to keep on maintaining the fees for 20 years. Generally, no one will pay for 20 years unless it is pharma applications. Like see, for IT cases, they can just, the technology becomes obsolete in no time, right? So they generally don't maintain for 20 years. Where in pharma case, even 20th, last day of 20th year also matters because they're drugs, right? So that's how the patent, the minute you stop paying the fees, it will get abandoned and you will not have any right and anyone can practice it. Okay, this is general patent process. So you can just see this again, the same thing we have captured it in a pictorial form. You conceived an idea, like how Murali was telling, right? He has a renewable energy sources. He conceived the idea. So what he has to do? He has to do some, I mean, it can't be a wish list. Again, I'm telling you, it can, you don't have to do full experiments. You don't have to have everything in results, in ready for a patent application, but it can't be a wish list. It can't be, I mean, too hypothetical. You can't say that I want to go, I have a way to go to the moon. That's not right. So something, it should be feasible. Then we have to do the patentability search. Then we have to draft the patent application. It will be published. Okay. So the from conception date to filing date, up to as early as possible, you do the experiments fast and try to file the patent application at the earliest. From filing date, 18 months, the patent application will be published and then it will be granted and then it will expire after 20 years. Okay. There are different types of patent applications. The first one is called provisional application, non-provisional application, conventional application, PCT application. PCT is nothing but Patent Cooperation Treaty. PCT National Phase Application, Patent of Edition, Divisional applications. Many are there. These are the important ones. What is provisional application? You are a research scholar. You have to present tomorrow. You have to make a presentation in a conference tomorrow. Urgent. You don't have time, but you want to protect it also. So what you do is you quickly file a provisional application. Provisional application doesn't have to have claims. The most difficult part of drafting a patent application is claims. So if someone gives me an invention, how do I draft? First we draft the claims. First we draft the claims. First we do. Then we do the drawings, and then we will do the rest of that because those are the ones very important ones. So that takes time, but we don't have time. We have to do public disclosure tomorrow, or we have to go for a conference tomorrow, or I am submitting my thesis and the thesis will be put in the library. So I don't have time. In such cases, when we are in hurry and our data is not fully ready, we can file a provisional application. What is the advantage of doing that? That gives you 12 months time to complete your experiments, but at the same time, you will have the priority date. You remember novelty, right? Novelty is, no one should have done before you. So if you delay, if someone does, they will get the novelty, they will get the patent and you will not get the patent. So it's better once idea is conceived and when you are ready with some experimental data and when you think that is important, file it as early as possible. If you are fully ready, go for complete application. If you are not ready and you need some more time to do more experiments to refine more, we can file a provisional application. The name, as the name indicates, it's only provisional. Within 12 months, we have to file the complete application. Otherwise, provisional application will be abandoned. So we get 12 months time to fine tune our invention, and we also get a priority date. So we will be the first ones. So if someone files patent application after your provisional application, you are safe. Because you filed on, today is 27th July, right? I filed today. Tomorrow someone files, doesn't matter. I am the first one to file. So that's how the provisional application is very important. When you are in hurry, when your experiment is not ready, when you want to get it, suppose your technology is very, very hot technology and you want to get as early as possible, quickly file a provisional application. That is a 12 months. You can today to July 27, 2021. So if I file, I have time till July 27, 2022. In this 12 months, that is a hard deadline. You cannot extend it anymore. So you have to file your complete application on 27 July 2022. you cannot add any new matter. So, okay, in provisional application, you would have given some little data. You can expand the data, but you cannot add any new matter. Because you're already claiming priority date, right? You are saying that I filed my application. I am the first one to file on 27 July. So you add new matter. So you can do the things and you can file a complete specification in within 12 months. That has to have claims, that has to have drawings. That is a complete application that will be examined. Provisional application will not be examined by the examiner. It's only to get you a date. That's all. Okay. Convention application. What is a convention application? See, we just learned in the morning, right? Patent rights are territorial. So what will be the inventors do? So they assess the market. Suppose I am an inventor. I file in India. I know that I have market in China. I know I have market in Europe. So I have to file there also, right? So what I have is I file in India first, and I can file within 12 months in China and in US. What is convention? India is a member of Paris Convention. Okay, whoever is a Paris Convention members, they have an advantage of using 12 months grace period. Okay. So you can just 1 second. Yeah, this is a Paris Convention. India became a member of Paris Convention in 1998. So local patent application followed within 12 months by multiple foreign applications. So you file in India. Here we are filing in India. And day zero, it can be provisional application, it can be complete application, doesn't matter. You have 12 months to enter into China, Japan, US, Europe, provided these countries are also members of Paris Convention. Be careful. So you can enter the different countries after 12 months, provided they're also members of Paris Convention. India is a member of Paris Convention since 1998. So what is the advantage? We'll get 12 months time, right? 12 months time. Otherwise, you have to translate in Chinese language. You have to, the day one, you have to translate in Chinese language, German, and other European country languages. The most expensive part of patent application filing is translation. It's very, very expensive. So at least you get 12 months time. That is a Paris Convention system. But still we are not happy. So we came up with something else called Patent Cooperation Treaty. This is much better than the convention application. India became again a member of Patent Cooperation Treaty in 1998. So this is a good thing. But only thing is, it is only a patent filing system. It's not a granting system. I can explain you next. See, almost 153 countries are members of PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty. So if you file in India today, you can enter, you can file a PCT application within 12 months. From there, you have 30 months to enter into the different nations. Maybe I can show you the picture. Just let's see. So it is a international application governed by the Patent Cooperation Treaty. 153 countries are the members of PCT. So we can get a PCT application by filing, we can get a priority date by filing a PCT application. It is equal to applying in all the countries, all the 153 countries if you file a PCT application, and you have 30 months to enter the national phase. So what is this? This is first top portion. If you see, you file an application in India. If you are going for Paris Convention, you have 12 months. In 12 months, you have to enter into the different countries. Okay, you have to pay the fees for translation, official fees, patent agents. You have to do everything within 12 months. This is Paris Convention. PCT is a new system where we file application in India in 12 months. Then, we file India application at this date, and within 12 months, we'll file a PCT application. Then, to enter the different countries, we have 30 months. See, we have 30 months to enter into different countries which are part of PCT. Be careful. They all have to be members of PCT. Most of the countries are part of PCT except for some few countries like Argentina, Taiwan. These are few countries which are not members. So if you are a IT person and you are working with IT and it is very important to save in Taiwan, unfortunately, you can't go through PCT route. So you have to file in Taiwan within 12 months. Similarly, if you are a agricultural patent and you want to protect it in Argentina, Argentina is not a member of PCT. You have to file within 12 months through the convention route. Okay, what some more advantages are there for PCT application? If you file a PCT application, you get a search report. Okay, that is an international search report. So if your search report is not favorable, you don't even have to enter the other countries, right? If international search report is very negative, it says no, it's useless, it's not novel, it's not inventive. If the international search report gives you such kind of very bad search report, at least you have time to think. Should I enter in the US? Should I spend more money to enter in Germany? Do I have to spend money in translation? So the applicant will have so much of time to enter the national phases. So this money which we are spending by entering the conventional route, which we are spending in 12 months, that we can postpone for 30 months. So now everyone who wants to file the patent applications in various jurisdictions will opt for PCT. It's expensive, but it saves you a lot of efforts, lot of money. In lot of money in the sense, at least it differs. It will not stop. Anyway, you have to pay money. Instead of paying a 12th month, suppose you can pay up to 30 months. Just imagine a startup company who will be crunch of resources. It will be very useful for them, right? They can get 30 months to understand. So they within 16 months, we'll get a search report. Within 18 months, international publication will happen. After that, we have so many other facilities that will be expensive, so we won't use them. But international search report and written opinion is very, very useful. It gives us some idea whether to enter which country. And then we will, some countries will allow 30 months to enter. Some countries will have 31 months to enter the national phase. That is called national phase. Okay, so we have a PCT convention application, that is a Paris Convention. We have PCT, that is a Patent Cooperation Treaty, and then we have national phase. National phase is nothing but entering into the national phase via the PCT route. So these are different ways. So if you are very small startup and you are very sure that you don't want to go for anything else, please you can stick to Indian patent application. Okay, so that depends. These are all not our decisions. It's basically based on a business decision. Whether business wants to go ahead with multiple jurisdictions or business wants only in some jurisdictions, then it is up to them to decide. Suppose you decide to do only 2 countries, then don't come to PCT route. Do Paris Convention route, only 2 countries, right? Instead of that, you want to take some time, you want to understand the business of the markets, then you go through the PCT route. So basically, that's what here we are comparing. Conventional application only 12 months time. PCT will have 31 months time. We'll know to the strength of the invention only after filing. Whereas in a PCT application, we get a search report. So we will be able to get the search report and we'll get some idea how is our invention looking like. So again, then can I do any amendments at the step? No, it's not possible in convention country. In PCT, you can amend the claims also. Suppose if international search report is not satisfactory, you can amend the claims, right? Then only thing is, if in convention, you'll get faster. Why? Because you are entering the country in 12 months only, right? PCT, you are waiting for 30 months. So it will take some time, but up to you, up to the business to decide. So basically, these are the advantages we talked about. We get an international search report. We get an option to request the international preliminary examination report, and we can figure out whether our invention is patentable or not with a PCT application. I just explained you what is PCT national phase application. So we filed a PCT application. After that, we have 30 months or 31 months to enter into each nation. Okay. We have something else called as patent of edition. You worked hard, you finished, you filed a patent application, everything is done, patent application is filed, you got a patent number, everything, it's not yet granted, but it's already been filed. Okay, then suppose you have done a small invention, it's not really big invention to call for one more patent application, a delta invention, a little baby, you have done a small invention. Then what you can do is you can add your invention to the mother application, the parent application, and you call this as a child application, or it is called patent of edition. Okay, so main application is there already. It's already been published. It's already been patented. It may be also granted, no problem. So if you want to file a patent of edition, it's still possible to do that. So what will happen? You don't have to pay extra fees for that. It will die along with the mother. The main application, if it is having 15 years left, this baby also will die along with the mother. That is called the patent of edition. We have something called divisional application. What is a divisional application? Each invention Each patent application is only for one invention. We will be greedy. We want to put 2-3 inventions. That is not right, right? So you can get a monopoly only for one invention. So suppose you file 2-3 applications or 2-3 concepts in one application, patent office will come back and say, look, you are not correct. You have to divide them. These are all not common applications to have one application. They need separate search. They need so much more this thing. Please divide applications into 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it may be. Those are called divisional applications. So if you have more than one invention, patent office will come back. When you apply for the patent, you may happily apply because you want to save money. You apply, but the patent office, when they examine, they say, how come this you are covering so many inventions in one patent application? Not acceptable. It's called, in PCT language, it's called unity of invention. It's not unity. There is no unity of invention. You are combining 2-3 inventions. Please separate them. Otherwise, we will reject. So then we will file different applications for each idea. That is called a divisional application. Okay. So how does it look like? So we learn different applications, right? We learned about provisional, non-provisional. When do we do provisional? When we are in hurry, when we want to get the date as early as possible, we'll file a provisional application. We have a convention application, Paris convention application. We have a PCT application. PCT is a very expensive route. That depends on the businesses. That depends on the market availability. We can take a call according to the business. Okay, so we'll file the application. It will be published within 18 months. Okay, once the application is published, in India, we have called something as pre-grant opposition. Any person in the world, any person in India can file a pre-grant opposition. He can say, please don't grant this application. This is not novel. This is not inventive. The inventors are lying. The invention is obtained by fraudulent means. Any reason. There are some reasons. Section 25 of Patent Act will define what are the conditions with which you can oppose the grant of it's not even granted. That is called pre-grant opposition. Any person can file a pre-grant opposition and it will be open till the grant. Then what happens is, in India, we have to file, we file the application, patent application, then we have to file for a request for examination. I mean, in the US, it automatically happens. If you file the application, it automatically goes to the examination. In India, we have to request. We will, within 48 months of the priority, we have to say, dear examiner, please examine. I am filing a request for examination. Please examine my application. So then examiner will, then we will get a examination report that is called first examination report, FER. It's called FER. First examination report will be given. So we have to prepare the response for the first examination report, and then we'll file the report to the examiner. It's exactly like court of law, but lawyers go, patent lawyers, what we do is we do everything on paper. So we will file the response to the examiner. Controller in India, it's called controller. In the US, we call it as examiner. So he says, I'm happy, okay, he'll allow. He says, no, I'm not happy. I want to have an oral hearing. So we'll have nowadays, because of this COVID, we are doing everything by video conferences. We'll talk to the examiner. We'll have an opportunity to explain, dear examiner, see, I am novel. My invention is novel. My invention is inventive. We can argue and we'll get an oral hearing. So again, we'll get a grant. Again, a granted patent will be published, right? What is the difference between this publication and this publication? The first publication is as is what we filed. And this last grant publication is after amendments, after claims are amended, after we argued, whatever is it, this is the latest one. Then in India, we have something called as post-grant opposition. Within 12 months, someone can, so you can't be happy if you get a patent, it's not end of the story. In India, there is something called as post-grant opposition. Someone can, here, we'll just see post-grant opposition can be filed by only persons interested. Suppose if you are a pharma, your patent is a pharma patent, only Reddy Labs can oppose. Okay, Philips can't oppose because it is only a person interested can oppose for the post-grant opposition. Whereas pre-grant opposition, anyone can file a pre-grant opposition. So there is a difference between post-grant and pre-grant. This is a patent process. So we file, we publish, we get examination, we'll respond to the examination by writing. We'll also get an opportunity to talk to the examiner. We get a grant and the granted application will be published. Okay. So again, so we have early publication also is possible. See, you want to see whether anyone wants to oppose. See, these are all business strategies. Maybe academicians, it may not be very useful and needed for you people, but this is the process. Early publication. Why will anyone want early publication? Because they want to put it in the open and see if anyone will oppose, right? So early publication is possible. Otherwise, the publication will happen only after 18 months, right? If you want to pay extra money, you can get an early publication. Our regular publication will happen after. If you don't pay money, it will happen after 18 months. If you want early publication, we will pay extra money. Why early publication? Because we are putting our invention to the public, and for competitors, if they jump on us, then we can take a call, right? If they say pre-grant opposition if it's filed, then we have to look at it. Then we have expedited examination will happen within 48 months. We have to apply for the examination that is called RFE, request for examination. Once examination is filed, you also have a provision to take it faster. You can file an expedite examination. You have an express examination. You can do all these things by paying extra money. Then we get a first examination report. Then we have to reply within 6 months, or we can ask for extension of 1, 2, or 3 months by paying extra fee. Now, since we are in COVID, now we can file the response without paying extra fee. We are now only this period, Supreme Court allowed us to file the responses because inventors may be suffering with they may be undergoing through some hardships. So we have now this replying to the first examination report is extended by till indefinitely it's extended. So we can file anytime. That is only for during COVID time. Once you file the first examination report, it will be heard, and then you will submit the written submission. Either you get a refusal or you get as a patent application. So I told you, right? Automatic publication process. It will automatically publish. If you're not in hurry, it will automatically. If you can wait for 18 months, it automatically publish. It will be automatically published in Patent Gazette in 18 months. Then you have some problems if it will not be automatically published. If these are the conditions. If your invention involves anything to do with the security of the country, then it will not be published. So the examiner will check. Suppose these are the problems that these defense organizations, DRDO, ISRO, if they file a patent application, it will be thoroughly checked. And if it has any sensitive information which is sensitive to the national security, it will not be published. It will be stopped. Or if you you decided not to go ahead, then you can also ask, please don't publish, it will be stopped. Okay. If you withdraw the patent application within 3 months, then also it will not be published. If power of authority, I'm your patent agent. If I don't file power of authority, then application will not be published. These are some conditions which will not allow the automatic publication. Otherwise, by default, within 18 months, it will be publication. It will be published. I explained early publication, right? By paying extra money and by filling a form 9, you can get an early publication as early as possible. Okay. So what will happen? There is something called as patent journal. If time permits, I'll show you a sample of patent journal where it will be clearly published. Say, not full invention will not be published. It will have an application number. It will have date of filing, title of invention, date of publication, IPC International Patent Classification, name and address of the application, and name of the inventor. See, name and address of the applicant and name of the inventor. Morning we learned the difference, right? If you are inventor, if you are inventing, you are inventor. If your university is applying, university is an applicant. So all this data will be published. Also, it will also.
Ma'am, a small query. Yeah. Like if it is not published, then would it be that the patent is granted?
No. Not at all. It has to go through its mill. It has to go through the examination report. It has to go through the oral hearing. Then only it will be. Yeah. So if you mean to say that if it is secret, if suppose if it is abandoned, if it's not published because of secrecy,
yeah,
then it has to go to central government. It's a big issue.
Okay.
It has to go to the central government. Central government also has to decide it is because basically it is involved with national security, right?
Yeah.
So if patent office feels that it is secret, the information is secret, the information is not supposed to be published, immediately the patent office will go to the central government. Central government will review the application. Central government will say, no, you're wrong, examiner, please go ahead and publish. Then it will be published. But the central government also feels that it is threat to the security of the country, it will be stopped. It will not be published. Actually, it's a totally different altogether different ball game, another topic of a discussion. So that is secrecy. If your invention comes under secrecy, you will be at loss in the sense you cannot monetize, You cannot publish, you cannot get a patent and disclose it third party. It has to be only with the government. Government may pay you some money because you worked on it, but that money may be very, very little money. So it's a, I mean, kind of loss. I mean, you have to have a balance, but basically, I mean, if you look at your own personal benefits, the country will be at threat, right? So if your invention comes under secrecy, it will not be published. It will be granted. It will go through the thing granted, but even the granted application will not be granted patent will not be published. You cannot disclose to third party. You cannot monetize. You cannot do anything with that. Only government will have control over it, and government will pay you some money.
Then would it be a part of the trade secrets?
No, it's not trade secret. It's a patent only.
Okay.
Trade secret means what? Trade secret is only some formula or something like that, right? This is much more severe than that, right? It is secrecy. It's countries. Suppose DRDO comes, Defense Research and Development Organization comes with some invention, something to do with very nuclear energy or something like that. That will not be published. That will not be in trade secret. That will be a patent application. Patent will be granted, but everything under the table. We will not know. No public will know about it.
Me, ma'am, no research data would be available for further R&D?
That depends. That depends. You are DRDO basically, right? You are authorized by government. So you can do it, no problem. You can continue research. But again, same problem. Suppose you come up with a new solution, again you apply, again examiner will stop under secrecy directions.
No. I mean the research data for other parties. Because it is a prerequisite for patent that you have to disclose so that others can incentivize or others can further R&D. That's what I mean.
Yes, you are right. This will not be allowed. No one can do on this. I mean, this is not even me. No one will even know the data other than the lab people. How will I know? How will you know? It's only by the examiner, controller himself will stop. Then it will go to central government. Central government will take a call. Ultimately, if central government feels that it is not really needed, then they will release it. So now you can also ask, what will be the fate of the inventor who worked? So inventor will be monetized. He will be rewarded, but government reward will be peanuts. It may not be really his efforts.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry for interrupting.
No problem. Absolutely fine. I'm only worried we will run short of time because a lot of material is there. Okay. So examination now done. It's published. Everything is gone. Pre-grant opposition is open. Doesn't matter. Examiner will look at your thing and he will give us a examination report saying that, look, your invention is not novel, it's not inventive, it's not patentable under section 3D. He give whatever he comes, it will not be clear, it's not concise, you didn't define it properly, he'll give. So for each rejection or objection, I have to address. As a patent agent, I have to take the application, I have to look at the first examination report and I have to address each and everything. I'll show you one FER, how the examiners can give the FERs. He can tell anything in the world. He says it's not novel, it's not industrial applicable, it's not inventive, it has no scope, it's not clear, your claims are not drafted well, anything he can say. Okay. So during the examination, he'll give us an examination report and we will prepare a response and have one more opportunity to be heard. So we can go for the oral hearing and we can present our arguments. Now, that is a part over. Now, opposition. We have two types of opposition in India. One is pre-grant opposition, another one is post-grant opposition. Section 25 of Patent Act defines conditions. There are many conditions. Maybe you can just very quickly go through that. For pre-grant opposition, any person who's any Indian can oppose for the patent, this thing. For post-grant opposition, you have to be a person interested. Okay. So what are all the reasons? Some we can see claims are not novel. It doesn't have patentable subject matter. The person is not really real inventor. He's cheated people. All these reasons you can quote and you can file a pre-grant opposition. Okay. So pre-grant opposition, we already talked. Any person can file a pre-grant opposition. See, everywhere the system gives something and we exploit it. See, I'll just give an example. Pfizer filed a patent application in 2007 and it was rejected in 2015. See, 8 years patent office took time to reject the application. Then Pfizer went to the Intellectual Property Appellate Board. Unfortunately, now we don't have Intellectual Property Appellate Board is repealed by the patent office, we're waiting for the orders. So if you are not happy with the examiner, you can go to IPAB before. Now it's IPAB is not there anymore. Pfizer appealed to IPAB, Intellectual Property Appellate Board. IPAB heard in 2020. See, 2007 they applied for the patent. It was heard in 2020. And IPAB said, no, patent office, you're wrong. Pfizer can get the patent application. Okay, so they're about to issue the patent. Someone filed a pre-grant opposition. See, who's the person who filed a patent opposition? He is a diamond merchant in Gujarat. Is there any sense? It's a patent application in pharma, and it was opposed by a person who's a diamond merchant in Gujarat, because in India, pre-grant opposition can be filed by any person. But this time, court was very upset, and IPAB was very upset, and they said that the person who applied for pre-grant opposition will be penalized. He's just nothing to do, just only to stop Pfizer to get a patent application. See, if you file a pre-grant opposition, what happens? It has to go through the mill, right? It has to go through the process. It has to be verified. It has to be checked. With a person, diamond merchant or anyone, Tom, Dick and Harry, the process has to take place. So again, it has to go to pre-grant opposition. It has to go back to the controller. Controller has to look at it. What is the problem? He has to solve the problem. It again gets delayed, and Pfizer will not get a patent. So the Bombay court also imposed a penalty on them, saying that you are just misusing, right? It is called strawman opposition. These are this type of oppositions that are called strawman. Strawman means really not man, right? In the fields, we put a strawman to scare the crows. So it's just like that. He is not a person interested at all. Someone behind him made him file this pre-grant opposition. They didn't want to disclose. Maybe another pharma company want to oppose this. They don't want to come into picture. They don't want to show their face. So they put this person in front and they asked him to file a pre-grant opposition. So system gives us some rules and we exploit it. And then we have something called as post-grant opposition. Luckily, post-grant opposition. Post-grant opposition is almost, the patentee has a patent in hand. So it will be open only for 12 months. You can file a post-grant opposition. It can be filed only by a person interested. What do you mean by a person interested? In the same field. A person engaged in or promoting research in the same field. If Pfizer is filing Pfizer is getting grant, Reddy Labs can oppose because they both are in the pharma field. So post-grant opposition is filed only by the person interested. Then we have something called as revocation. So we should not be very happy that we got a patent application. It can be revoked by anyone. So revocation can be done by any person interested again or central government. Okay, so it's not very easy to revoke a patent. It's only done by the central government. Where will one go for revocation? If you want to revoke, you can go to Intellectual Property Appellate Board before. So I put a question mark because now we don't know where it goes now. Still, we are waiting for the law to happen. Or we can go to the High Court. Why will the central government revoke patent application? Because something called as compulsory. These are all actually topics on its own. So we will briefly cover. To grant a compulsory license. So what happens in India? You have a patent or some multinational company applies for a patent in India and they're not practicing it. They're not meeting the needs of the public. Then government or controller can take a stand and say that we are granting a compulsory license to make the product in India. So it's not easy to grant a compulsory license. It has to meet some requirements. The first requirement is the patented invention is not available to the public at a reasonably affordable price. This basically compulsory license happens in pharma cases for the drugs because we are a developing country. We are not very rich country. So we need drugs at affordable prices. And our constitution says that it's government's policy, government's obligation to provide healthcare at nominal prices to all its citizens. So patented invention is not available to the public at a reasonably affordable price. It is not worked in India. It is not meeting the requirements of public. Under these three conditions, the controller can come and say, okay, we are issuing a compulsory license. We have one case in India. It happened in 2012 to Natco Pharma. So what happened? Bayer is making one drug in India, anti-cancer drug. It's called Nexavar. And they're selling at a monthly treatment cost 2.8 lakhs. If you are using Nexavar in India for cancer treatment. Then Natco made the same drug for 8,800 rupees in India per month. So Bayer immediately got angry. Bayer said, how can NATCO make the drug? Because we have patent, we are patent holders. Then the controller said that you are not meeting the requirements. You are not meeting the requirements. You are not manufacturing in India. You are not satisfying the public interest. So the first compulsory license was issued in favor of NATCO from Bayer to make Nexavar drug. However, NATCO has to pay some money, some compensation, but that will be peanuts again, right? 6% of the net sales should be paid to Bayer by NATCO as a royalty, because they are using their patent application. They have to pay some license money. That will be 6% of their profits. They have to share. Sorry, not profits, net sales. 6% of their net sales, NATCO has to pay the Bayer. So this is a compulsory license. This is one way of compulsory license. Compulsory license, when will it happen? When the drug is not available at affordable price in India, when the public interest is not met, when the invention is not worked in India. You just file application, you are not working in India. Then government can barge in and they say that it's not acceptable. Okay. Sometimes central government also can revoke the patent. In which cases, if the invention relates to defense, if the invention is relating to atomic energy, any other reason which will be prejudicial to public, central government can interfere. Generally, very rarely it happens, but it can happen. Central government can interfere and say to revoke the patent application. So what are the formal requirements? We have to file, we have to file Form 1, the application for patent. Form 2, the complete description. Form 3, if you filed anywhere in the country, any other countries, you have to inform the patent office, and you have to fill Form 5, that is declaration of inventorship, and Form 26 is power of authority, POA. That basically you are not filing, right? I am filing on your behalf. I am your patent agent, so you have to give me power of authority. So all these forms have to be filed. Okay. Then post-grant requirements. Once the application is granted, you have a patent in your hand. Then, but it will get abandoned unless you pay the fees. So you keep on paying the fees, and maybe you can get 6-month extension for delayed payment, but you have to pay the fees, and patent will cease on failure of the renewal fee. Please keep in mind, you have to keep on maintaining. That's why the whole process is very expensive. You have to pay the maintenance fee 20 years. So one more condition is now you have to give a statement of working of patents. In India, it's called Form 27. So you file the patent application, you got a grant, then you have to file Form 27 every month, every year by 31st March. I think now it's changed. I think it's September 30th. I'm not sure. You can check that. We have to file Form 27 saying that, yes, I'm working. No, I'm not working. I will be working. I'm not working because of this. Something, there is a Form 27 you have to fill and file every year. After the grant, you have to file what that is called working statement. Form 27 is working statement. Okay, this is the story of the patents. Now, trademarks. So why do we trademark? Why we need to protect the trademark? We learned in the morning, right? We learned that it gives us edge over the other competitors. It allows my customers to stick to me. I'll get the loyal customers. So we have to protect the trademark. Is it necessary to register a trademark? Not necessary. You don't have to register. You can just write TM and keep using it. But if you register, you will have evidence to go against infringements. So it's better to register. Otherwise, copyrights, trademarks need not be registered. They copyright the minute you write a poem on a paper, it's copyrighted. But if you won't go behind the infringer, it is better to register a trademark. Same thing for a trademark also. Exactly. If you see, again, trademarks are territorial in nature and may be registered through, you have an Indian patent or Indian trademark office you can file, you have a regional, or you have something called as Madrid system. Madrid system is equivalent to your PCT. Same. So you can get the rights by registration or by use. I told you, right? You don't have to register. You can get it. But that may be a risk. Okay. So we have something called Madrid system. Right? Madrid system is international system by WIPO. WIPO is World Intellectual Property Organization. It is simple vehicle to maintain trademarks in multiple jurisdictions. So it should bring you to PCT, exactly PCT, right? So it's convenient and cost-effective solution. Can you please mute? Someone's phone is ringing. ना कॉल करता है, तुमच्या वेळेस उत्तर देत नाही. कृपया. Okay. So MADRID system is exactly like our PCT system. It's convenient and cost-effective solution for registering and managing trademarks worldwide. 123 countries are members. Maybe this may be old data, it may be more countries. So 123 countries are part of MADRID system. You can modify, you can renew or expand through one centralized system, exactly like your PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, for your patents, and MADRID system is for trademarks. Who can apply the MADRID protocol? Any person who is a citizen of Indian citizen, or who is domiciled in India, or has a real and effective industrial commercial establishment in a contracting party. Again, countries have to sign in the MADRID agreement. Then only we can do it. It's reciprocatory, right? So all the countries who are members of MADRID system, you can file. He is a national or of a state member of a contracting organization. So whoever, whichever country is a member of MADRID system, they all can use the MADRID protocol. What is the advantages? Similar advantages like your PCT. It's cost effective. You can file in one application, in one language, in one currency you can, and one search, everything is done in one go. Okay. So what, like, how do we search? We have different, it is Indian for India. We have different classes. The products are classified into different, for example, for few product classes. If you see, class 1 is for chemical products, class 20 for furniture, class 14 for jewelry. So each, if you apply for a trademark, it will be assigned one class. Okay, each class are there. This is for product classes. Similarly, we have our service classes. Advertising is class 35, computer and software services, class 42. Like that, we have different classes for different trademark classes. Okay, how do you file? What are the formalities? First, patent search. Always search. If someone is having similar trademark, search. Applying, then getting rejection. Instead of that, better to do a search. It saves money. It prevents from getting a cease and desist letter. What is cease and desist letter? Suppose you file a trademark and your competitor also, someone else has the same trademark. He'll send you a letter. Please stop, cease and desist. You seize your product and stop it. He'll send a letter. Why you want to take all those chances? So better search and make sure that your trademark is not elsewhere present. It's not used by anyone else. And you can do search by yourself. You can look at the telephone directories. You can look at the internet. You can look at Google. You can look at the Indian Trademark Office. You can look at their website. You can do on your own. Foreign searching may be expensive, may not be very useful. So you can finally go for a professional search. If you feel that it is needed, you can go for a professional search. Again, everything depends on the business need. If you are a small startup in India and you're not planning to expand to other jurisdictions, you don't have to do all these things, right? It's up to you. It's your call whether to go for research, whether to go for MADRID system, whether you really want to release your product in different countries and you want to have your trademark protected in every country. Up to you to decide. Okay. So what is the procedure here? Exact same, more or less same. It will be searched, then it will be, we'll search, we'll make a search and we are happy, then we'll file a trademark application, then we'll get an office receipt after filing, then we'll get an office action, same, we get an office action, and again, we have to prepare the response. If the response is accepted, well and good. If it is not accepted, you will not get a trademark. So again, once you get a trademark, you have to pay the fees and it can be renewed for up to 10 years. If you pay the fees and renew, it will be valid for 10 years. Then after that, if you want to still extend, you can keep on renewing it by paying the fees. That is the story of the trademarks. Now copyrights. Copyrights, as again, like trademarks, copyright need not be registered. You can get the copyright as soon as you write it. You write a poem on the paper, yes, it's already done. You have a copyright, but better to have a prima facie evidence in your case of third parties. If you want to sue someone, if you want to go for the infringement, it's better to have a registration. Okay, so we have a Copyright Act in 1957. First it was in 1914, then we kept on amending it. In 1957 it is amended, and latest amendment was done in 2012. Now in 2012 we included the digital rights management, right? With so much of internet coming in, we included these digital rights managements were included in Indian Copyright Act in 2012. So basically we follow a common law legal system. What do you mean by common law? Common law is we don't have any codified law. So we look at the previous cases. So US also follows common law. So if Supreme Court or in our India, if any case is decided by the Supreme Court and one decision is been given, that is followed by other cases. That is called common law. Civil law is, other countries have civil law. Civil law means it will be codified. It will be written everything. Oh, A, B, C, D, you have to follow like this. In common law, it is basically lays on the case law. Case law means previous cases. If I get a case now of infringement, what anyone will do, the courts or anyone will look at the previous cases. How did the court decide? What happened in the previous case? So they take the precedents from the previous cases. That is called common law system. India is a common law system. So we depend on the case law to interpret and set precedents in law. So we look at the previous cases and accordingly we will decide. So India is a member of Berne Conventions, Universal Copyright Convention. We are members of many international organizations. Sorry, many international acts. Okay, then we also have. So each identity classified in different copyright, because each copyright has different terms of protection. So literary, dramatic, musical, artistic works, all these will have 60 years from the end of the calendar year in which the author dies. If you have an author, the author died in June 2021, the count starts from December 31st, 2021 to 60 years. Okay. So for which ones? For literary, dramatic, musical or artistic works, it will be 60 years from the end of the calendar year which the author dies. The author died in February 2021. So the calendar year will end at December 31st, 2021. Your 60 years will start from then. I don't know the logic. We can figure out, but this is how the thing is given for 60 years from the end of the calendar year. We have two authors, so it'll end. The 60 years will start from the last known author. If you don't know the author, it will be the year it was published, from the end of the calendar year of the year it was published. So different. Basically, it is for protected about 60 years. Copyright is, you get copyright for a very long period. So in case of cinematography films, it is 60 years from the beginning of the calendar year. Okay, so copyright we will get 60 years from the beginning of the calendar year following the year in which the film is published. Sound recordings, again 60 years from the beginning. And author, who's the owner? The author is the owner of the copyright. Okay, suppose you are working for some company and you have done something and he paid you money for that. Please remember that the copyright belongs to that person. Okay, I repeat. In case of a photograph taken or painting or portrait drawn from valuable consideration at the instance of any person, I pay you. I ask you, draw this drawing for me. Take this photo. I pay you. You got money from me. Then the copyright lies with me. Similarly, if you are working in a university, you wrote a book, and that is in the scope of employment. The book belongs to the employer. In case of literary, dramatic, or artistic work made by the author in the course of his employment by a proprietor of newspapers, magazine, or similar periodical under a contract of service, the proprietor shall be the owner. So if you are an editor of a newspaper and you ask someone to write something for you and you paid him salary, the copyright belongs to you. So, but still the authors will have two rights. One is the right of paternity and the right of integrity. Okay, someone else may be the author, someone else may be the owner, but if suppose you are still the father, you have the right of paternity. You have the one who created, so you have to be recognized. You have to be at least mentioned. It's a movie taken from your novel. Yes, you sold your rights, but somewhere it has to be mentioned that you are the author. Similarly, if someone buys a novel from you and completely mutates, completely dismantles, completely changes the story and makes it very bad, then you also have right of integrity. You can go behind them. Correct. He is the owner. You sold the rights to him, but he cannot completely mutate he cannot mutilate or he cannot distort the story or whatever you are this thing. So you can go behind them as right of integrity. Okay, morning we just discussed, right? There are some exceptions. Okay, what are the exceptions? Fair uses are exemption. Works done for the following purpose will be fair use, personal use. You are not selling it. You are writing a thesis or you are doing something. You want to write something. So it's only personal use. It's research. It's criticism and review, and it's news reporting. These are not called infringement. So you want to criticize a novel, or you want to review a novel, you quote the novel as is. That's not a that's a fair use. So it's acceptable. It's not infringement. So now we know the major thing happening in is piracy, right? That's happening with the internet era. So piracy is nothing but using the unlawful way, using your copyrighted work in unlawful way. So copyright holder is the creator, a publisher. He has the rights to do something, but if someone else infringes, if someone else uses his work without his permission, that will be equivalent to piracy, right? How do we do that? Generally, we directly negotiate, right? We will talk to them and say, look, this is, I have paid, please, let's not, don't force me to go to the court. So that is direct negotiation, pay me some money or something like that. Then we have something called as notice and takedown process. Like, so you remember, if you see a video today in YouTube, tomorrow it may not be there. It's removed for copyright violation. So you can send a notice and takedown processes, and you can go to civil court litigation. And copyright infringement also can lead to criminal offenses. So you can be put into prison. Okay. So copyright is when is it infringed? When someone else uses the copyright without authorization of the owner, he'll be infringing it. That's called a infringement. What is digital piracy? So we'll take something, we'll put either audio, we'll put a visual, or we'll put audio visual on someone else's work on the internet service provider, also will be liable, right? So how do we take care of this piracy? Be careful. You have to be vigilant. You keep on sending the takedown notices. You can, if you are not happy, you can go to the court. You can, how do you go to the court? How can you ask for injunction? Injunction means asking them to stop. You have to show 3 things. You have to show prima facie case. First, you have to show evidence, right? That's why we are saying that you have to register, and then you have to say balance of convenience, how much and you said likelihood of damages, how much loss happened because of this infringement. If you can show all these things, government will have a remedy for you. We have 2-3 remedies. They are called John Doe order and Turnpiller order. I mean, these are the remedies for your copyright. What is notice and takedown process? Is the simplest. The first step is simplest thing is send them the notice and takedown processes. It is a tool copyright holders to get user uploaded material that infringes their copyright takedown of their websites. So immediately you can send a notice. If you see your copyrighted material on the YouTube or in some other websites, you can immediately send the first step is notice and takedown process. So so who is the service provider? It could be internet service provider, it could be a website operator, it could be a search engine, it could be a web host. Anyone, if they are violating your rights, you can go send them a notice and takedown processes. So you have to clearly explain them why they are infringing your rights. Then if they are happy, they'll take down. If they're not happy, they'll not take down. If they are not taking down the material, then you can go to the court. As I mentioned, copyright violence is, it can also get a criminal, civil penalties. It can also have a criminal penalties. Okay, we have something called as John Doe order. What does that mean? It's not for one person. No one is infringing. But suppose if movie is coming, your director is releasing a movie, maybe Bahubali, it's a very important movie, a very, expensive movie or something like that. So the director can go to the court and ask the court to issue John Doe order. It's not for one person, it's for a group of people. He can ask. It's possible to ask when it is not, parties are not known, not one party. There may be many parties which may be infringing. They may be making CDs, they may be infringing copyrights. You can go to the court and then you can ask them to issue a John Doe order. Basically, when do you do that? When there are several unknown parties involved. In case of dispute, you can't identify one person. There are so many people. So we can go to the court. So we can call them as collectively as John Doe, and then we can tow them as, you can ask them for issuing a John Doe order. In which cases you can ask for? You can ask for movies, you can ask for books, you can ask for sports events, right? for all this IPL match and all. So much money they'll be spending to get the rights. So all these people can go and get an order a priori. It's not even infringed, but they can get an order to stop all the people who can violate. We have something else called as appellate order. That is, you can walk into the premises of the defendant. Who's a defendant? Who's violating your rights is called defendant. If you are putting a case, you are called as a plaintiff. Plaintiff is the one who is complaining. Defendant is the one who is being complained at. So this order, this ant and pillar order, gives you directly to walk into the premises. You can't do that, right? You suppose even to arrest someone, you need a search warrant, arrest warrant. Here in this case, if you think that your copyright is violated, if you go to the court and get this order, you can directly walk into the premises. Why do we do that? Because they may destroy the evidence. So to avoid that, courts may give ant and pillar order. Okay, as I said, you have remedies, can be civil, can be criminal, can be administrative. Civil is, you can ask them to stop. They have to pay you the damages. They have to give you the accounts of profit. They have to give you the costs, everything. That is civil remedies. Criminal remedies, you can be imprisoned up to from 6 months to 3 years. You can go, and along with the fine. You have to go to the jail along with the paying the fine. So our administrative remedies, police officer can go. In this case of copyright infringement, police officer can walk and he can seize the infringing copies. He can seize the plates used for purpose of making infringing copies, and he can also give notice to the Commissioner of Customs. So he can also stop export and import of your goods. That administrative remedies. So if you have a product, you have to decide which one to go, to copyright or trademark. If at all your trademark also has a provision to get a copyright, please register under copyright as well as under trademark. Because in case of copyright violation, you get to destruct the product of the defendant. Okay, got me? So suppose my trademark is it has only, I go ahead and file a trademark. Also, it has some elements of some originality, some creativity, which can call for a copyright. It's better to go for copyright also, because if copyright is violated, the penalties will be quick and much more severe than a trademark. So not all are eligible for copyright. All trademarks are not eligible, but if you suppose your logos and designs, which also have some kind of original artworks, then some elements of creativity, then you can also protect them under trademarks. Copyrights. So, I mean, both we need to file it under trademark as well to protect our brand. But if possibility is there, we also should file under the copyright, because the advantage is copyright has, the police can walk, not even severe below the rank of sub-inspector. A police officer not below the rank of sub-inspector has the power to seize the copy. Okay. So, how do you file? How do you register the? Can you please mute? Okay. How do you register? You have to apply 2 copies of work. You have to pay the deed.
उसकी जॉब लगवाई थी, नहीं उसकी जॉब लगवाई थी, वो भाई है मिलने, मेरी कोई खुशी थोड़ी थी, उसने कहा था सर घर ले जाइए,
Can you please mute?
Participants, please mute yourself, please. It's a request.
Okay. How do we register? We have to give the copies of work. We have to pay the fees. We have to take an NOC. Whomever, if you are registering, if it is applicant is different from the artist, so we have to get an NOC, no objection certificate, and with all these things, we can file the copyright. Okay. I just don't want to spend too much time because we should not run short of time. Okay. There's a very important landmark that is called EU photocopy case of 2016. What happens here is, in Delhi University, there is a photocopy, it's called Ramesh photocopy. He takes from the standard textbooks of all the branded, all this Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, they publish the books. So this person, he takes the material from them Xerox them, make a course pack and sell to the students. So these people sued all these Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press. They all say that it is copyright violation. These books are protected under copyright, and this Delhi University as well as the Rameshwari photocopy services are violating our copyrights. Surprisingly, you know what the court said? Court said it is not copyright violation. In their use, copyright course packs are considered as copyright violation. Unfortunately, in India, they are considered as not violation. Why is that? What did the court say? The court says that copyright, it's inevitable. But if you are stopping the students, they will not be benefited, right? Now, every student has a phone. Every phone has a camera. The student will photograph of the book in the library. He'll go home and print. Do you call it as violation? He is using for his personal use. He is using it for further studies. So court said that it is not violation. I mean, it really, I don't know, how do we decide? I mean, we have to balance it. Really the court really balanced the public interest against copyright holders' rights. So all these standard press people came and they lost the case in India. This is called DU photocopy. It's very important case. So the plaintiffs lost the case. The court said that, see, the courts, you can just read this statement. I liked it very much. Right? In literature, not an inevitable, divine or natural right confers our authors absolute ownership of their creations. It is designed rather to stimulate activity and progress in the arts for the intellectual achievement of the public. It is intended to increase and not to impede the harvest of the knowledge. It is intended to motivate the creative activity of authors and inventors in order to benefit the public. So the students are better. It's not violating the copyrights. So let them make course packs. Let them say, right, India is a poor country. Can we afford really to buy all those costly textbooks? So how will they manage? So they have to go to these photocopy shops and they get the course material photocopied. So this is the court case. Why I put it, this is very important case, landmark case in copyrights. Like we saw landmark case, Novartis case in the morning, right? For section 3D, where the Supreme Court has defined what is efficacy in 3D, section 3D, Novartis case. We also looked at Bayer's case. There are a lot of case laws. Actually, it will be very interesting. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do a lot of case laws, but otherwise it will be extremely interesting to read the cases and see how the courts decide. I mean, it's very unpredictable. How the courts decide is very unpredictable sometimes. So we also learned about the Bayer compulsory license, right? How NATCO got a compulsory license from Bayer. So how do you balance? I mean, it's really up to us to decide how the courts, the public, how much importance the court gives to the public interest. In a case of this case, students are poor, they can't afford the textbooks, so court allowed. So even in the previous case, both cases are drug cases, right? Novartis case or Bayer case, both are drug cases where the treatment cost is extremely expensive, compared 2.8 lakhs to 8,000. So court has to go ahead and say that, yes, we'll give you compulsory license or your patent is not patentable under section 3D, right? So that is also basically cancer treatment drugs. Both are drugs. There are here poor students. Here also court decided. Okay. So what basically a summary, morning someone was asking. So I thought I'll just quickly take you through some examples. Okay. I see a painting made by a student in exhibition. I buy the painting. Okay. And I come back home. I print it on t-shirts. Am I infringing her copyright? Yes, because I bought the painting, but artist has the copyright of the work. So you can do whatever with your single physical painting you bought. You brought it home, you can burn it, you can tear it, you can gift it to your friend, but you can't copy that and put it on the t-shirts and sell it. It's not your work, right? So you need author's permission to make the copies. So just again, fair use. So can I use everything and just say this is taken from so and so? Can I give the credit and get out of the infringement? No, just giving credit is not enough. This is okay for plagiarism, right? It's okay for your studies. You can take some part and all, but you can't copy everything and say I just did it and I'm giving you the credit. Okay, fair use is very, very careful. It's a very thin line, fair use. So some factors are needed for fair use. Why and how you use the work, how much copyright protection the original has, how much or what part you have used, how much money it takes away from the original. So that's what fair use. If someone was telling me in the morning, I have taken something and I have used for education purpose of teaching my students, that's fine, right? I'm not taking any money from my students. So no money is involved. So that is equivalent to fair use. So be careful. What I'm saying is be careful between fair use and infringement. So publishing quotes from a new book on a blog with an opinion piece, reviewing it, perfect, right? You are just quoting it. You are also writing your opinion. That is a fair use. You are using copyrighted picture on your PowerPoint presentation for your school project. You are not making copies of it and selling it. You are just using it for a school presentation. Fair use, perfect. Writing a parody of a new pop song that makes fun of the messages from the original, absolutely fair use. You are just mimicking it. You are just commenting. You are just making a parody out of it to just make fun out of it. That's absolutely fair use. Publishing a copyrighted pic of celebrity in your school newspaper to report on their recent arrest, fair. You have a newsletter in your school and you want to write some article and you want to use the photograph, perfect. It's not for anything else. It's only for basic interest is to show the recent arrest, to show the news item. Okay, let's move on. Okay. Because I want to show you some examples which makes it. We have again Design Act. So any person who has a claims to be the proprietary of the design can file for a design. Priority again here also, priority can be claimed from a convention application if the design application in India is filed within 6 months of the priority date. Remember, like PCT Madrid and all, here also we have a design convention. If you file in another country, if you file in India, in 6 months you have to file in another country. If they are all members of the same convention, if they are members of the Paris Convention, 6 months. For patent application, we have 12 months. For design application, we have 6 months. So India is a member of Paris Convention, so we can use this provision. So how do you fill a design application? You have to fill a form. You have to have a power of attorney. You have to have give the photographs. You have to give the different views of the article. For seeking design protection, you have to give different views, and you have to give the class of articles. You have to give the details of the applicant. And if you are filing it elsewhere, you have to give the certified copy. So these are all the requirements for filing a design application. Okay, why do we do that? I mean, what do we get protection? We get a protection for 10 years, extendable to 15 years. So for design registration, if you protect, it's not like copyright and trademark. You have to register a design. Like patent, you have to design. Unless you want to keep it as a trade secret, it has to be registered. Similar, patents have to be registered, designs have to be registered. What is the difference? Major difference between design and patent? Design will have only the ornamental part, only shape, only features, only color combination. You cannot have any functional features in designs. So you can again get the protection. You can go against a person who's infringing your this thing, and without license or permission, no one can use your design. Okay. Now, the last one is protection. So, who can apply for plant variety protection? Any person who is claiming to be a breeder or successor of a breeder or assignee of the variety can file for a plant variety protection. Any farmer or group of farmers can file for an application. Any person authorized to make can file for a plant variety protection. University or a publicly funded agricultural institution can file for a protection, and the protection for trees and vines is 18 years, and for other crops it is for 15 years. So recently we have a case, PepsiCo. PepsiCo makes also chips, potato chips. So they have registered a plant variety FD15 or FD5, some potato variety has been registered under the plant variety. They got a protection. They are happy. But then they realize that the Gujarat farmers are growing the potato without their knowledge. So they went and sued the farmers. So it's suing Gujarat farmers. So it's like David versus Goliath, right? The story we know. David is a small little shepherd boy, and Goliath is the big giant. So it's just like that. So finally, Pepsi really, many NGOs just came and they blasted Pepsi like anything. So Pepsi got scared and they removed the court case. I mean, we don't know really. I mean, see, Pepsi has really worked so hard and they have made the potatoes, specific breed of potatoes. They registered under things. Still, they didn't have a protection. Again, I think we use the same logic of farmers, students, patients. Every intellectual property, every case we see, I think public in India is playing a vital role in protecting the public interest. Don't you think so? In all the cases, what at least we looked at in the morning, these are the landmark. This is the first case. Pepsi versus Gujarat farmers is the first case under Plant Variety Protection Act. Till now, we never had any case. So finally, Pepsi withdrew all the cases against the farmers. And you know what? The farmers, all of them now started growing the same variety in Gujarat. As a revenge, now all the farmers in Gujarat are growing that FD5 or whatever it may be, the potato crop, they're all growing to just take a revenge on Pepsi. Okay, so with this, how do we file? We have a we have a Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority was in New Delhi. It was established in October 2005. So you can go there and file your application, and you have to give seeds have to be deposited for DUS test. Remember DUS test? Morning we said no, distinct, uniform, and stable. So your seeds have to be distinct, your seeds have to be uniform, your seeds have to be stable. So for that, you have to go and give some amount of, they'll tell how many kgs or how much amount of seeds you have to deposit. You have to deposit your seeds there. And you also have to give them what is the germination percentage, what is the physical purity, what is the phytosanitary standards, and along with the seed quality test. If you take all this material and go to the Delhi office, you can register your plant variety protection. Okay. So with this, I completed this thing. I just quickly take you through the patent journal. And just we can look at it, how it looks like. Just give me a minute, I'll share. So I told you, right? This is a your patent application will be published in this. This is called Patent Gazette, Patent Journal, sorry. So all these things, some contents, everything, some special notice and all are there. So see, this particular thing is asked for an early publication. So that also written as early publication. So patent application, application number will be there. Date of filing will be there. Publication date will be there. The title will be there. So international classification. So morning we saw, just now I showed you trademark classes, no? Similarly, we have patent classification also. We have so many classes, chemical, IT, in chemical again, so many polymers, rubbers, elastomers, everything, no? So we have different classification systems. That is one classification system is called international classification system. So basically they divide the inventions in different classification. So that is also here it's filed international classification, the priority document number. So this person did not file anywhere. It is his first Indian application, no priority date. So no priority country. This is the first application. So filing date, it's not a divisional application. Name of the applicant, right? Name of the inventor. See, didn't I tell you this? Name of the applicant is company name. Inventors are Patnaik, Siddharth, or Varun. These are the inventors. And the first one is the applicant. And abstract will be published. So how many pages application, how many claims are there? This will be published after 18 months. See, like that. This is not an early publication. So that thing is not there. The previous one is an early publication. So they would have paid money, extra money, so to get an early publication. So that is early publication. So this is called a patent journal. I can show you the. So how do we get the first examination report? This is the first examination report. So it addressed to it's in Hindi and English as well. So the patent number, inventor's number, everything will come here and see how it will say. So it just says that claims 1 to 30. We have 32 claims in our patent application. So it says all 1 to 32 claims are novel. Thank God. So he accepted the novelty, but he rejected all the 32 claims under inventive step. So he said, no, your claims are not inventive. All 1 to 32 claims are not inventive. They all have industrial applicability. See, they are not patentable under section 3D. I got section 3D. Sorry, 3E. He says it's not patentable under section 3E. Then he says sufficiency of disclosure. He says scope is not very well defined. So this how I get a first examination report. He says these are the documents which are also doing the same thing as it's not a novelty, it's inventive. So by reading all these 3 things, DD3, US document, China application, and the Chinese application, if I read all these 3 documents, I'll be able to commit to your invention. That's what examiner says. So he says inventive step is not there. He'll say, my inventive, D1 is saying this, D2 is saying this. So for this, I'll prepare a response. I have to respond to each of these points. I have to start from the beginning and say, examiner, please, I have inventiveness. I have to explain. Then non-patentability, everything, scope, everything we have to explain. Okay. So with this, I come to the end of my session. Now I'll open the floor for the discussion. Any questions, anything we can talk. So we have another 5 to 10 minutes. So it's too much of information, but I mean, you don't have to really take everything, but just get the gist of it. That's the whole purpose of this seminar. So I don't think anyone will become masters. Having spent 17 years, still some topics are new to me, right? Having dwelling its own, it's not easy, but basically just to get an idea, like how do we get, what Madam, is the, yeah.
I have one question. I am audible?
Sure. Yeah, sure, you are.
Madam, is the computer algorithm, only algorithm, not specialized hardware for it, is patentable? I design an algorithm, particularly for a particular type of hardware, but the hardware, it can be work on any general hardware, but I have designed for a particular hardware. Is only algorithm is patentable?
No. India, no.
Okay, I have to go for
US,
some other.
Yes, you have to. Hardware is patentable.
But I designed for a particular hardware, then it became patentable.
Yes. You have to. In the Europe also is like kind of India. US is very flexible. US business methods are patentable. In India, you have to have some. In Europe, especially, have to have some technical effect. So in India, you tie up somehow and try to don't show it as a computer algorithm to what you are trying to patent it. So you have to manipulate your claims, and then you can get a. Depends again. It has to be novel. It has.
Madam, problem is that I have a software which can work on Arduino, that is a off-the-shelf microcontroller. It works on that, but I have not modified any type of thing, but I have added some hardware on like sensors and others. Is it patentable?
No, not.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's not. You can get a copyright.
Okay, thank you.
Madam,
computer algorithms are protected by copyrights.
Okay.
Madam, good afternoon, madam. Dr. Srinivas Murthy.
Yeah,
madam. My friend developing a Areca processes mission. Meanwhile, somebody is copying the same the model and they manufacturing in a different way, the same machine. And he apply the patent and he got it. But original work of his idea, they modifying it and they were taking up the patent. In this process, if the original idea been, suppose a person go for a court, can it be possible to fight against this copying of his idea?
Yeah. How much copying is done? Is it reverse engineering? Just he rearranged it and completely redesigned?
No. 60% of work is copied. 60 to 70% of work.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can go, but I'm not very sure of how the courts decide. We can definitely go for the infringement. You can maybe firstly, you can just talk to them as a first step.
In our
going to the court. Yeah.
In our country, this actually the problem. For example, even in universities also, research scholar put lot of effort in research, writing a research article and experiment. But the guide, they may be encashing it, and they may, on the basis of his name, most of the, sometimes, not all, sometimes they may go with the patent. In such cases, what we can do? So this is actually when I did projects, most of the time in PhDs. I'm not saying generalizing it, but some cases, in especially university setup, I'm observing it.
Yeah, you mean to say that they don't even give the credit to the researcher?
Yeah, madam. In some cases, in not all the cases, but yeah. He putting a lot of effort. One case.
I understand. I fully understand. You know, all the, I mean, I did my PhD from IISc,
actually,
right?
It's a paper. He putting a lot of effort and write a paper, research article, and publishing in the foreign international conferences. But his work, actually.
True. Yeah, I know. I understand. It hurts, but I don't know when that is at university level and that integrity of the professor.
Why I'm saying these are all the things happen. Just I'm saying in such cases, how to overcome such kind of problem.
I think university, I don't know what system we have, but we have to escalate the problem to higher authorities.
But
maybe
because
dean.
The things are very clear, madam, because the understanding between the guide and the supervisor, the research scholar and the guide, if I can completing it, if you can give this only. So n number of cases are there in universities, established universities. The scholar put a lot of effort in writing paper, research article, but these article been published in Scopus and in the name of the guide. This is one issue which was discussed in earlier in international conference, which I was attended, but there is no such strict rule that is established in our country related to these areas. That's why these kind of problems happen.
Agree. I mean, like, see, I did my PhD from IISc. I have published so many papers, but my professors, they'll be the author. I'll be the first author. I'll be the first author, and my professor will be there. He'll be the corresponding author. It makes sense, right? Because I'll be moving, I'll be finishing my research and go away. Whereas the professor will stay back in the university, so he'll be the corresponding author.
Yeah, madam.
That's completely fine.
Is co-author or they call it as author 2. Author 1 and author 2. That's
IISc, at least IISc Chemical Engineering Department, that's what we do. I am the first author because I am the research scholar. My professor is there, but he will be the corresponding author.
Or
perfectly fine.
Co-author. True, madam.
And small universities, I mean, this is really sad to hear this. Ratish, you want to add something?
That's the case with me also. I mean, I was the first author in all the publications, and my guide was the corresponding author. So, I've done my PhD.
Not in all the cases happen. Maybe in 20 to 30%.
There could be isolated incidents, as sir is talking about. I mean, there are a lot of, if you have to look at moral and ethical issues, there may be a lot of them over there. Yeah. But
that's true.
Yes, at least if you look with regards to plagiarism, the UGC has taken initiative so that you can
even only the similarity index. It's not copying it. Only thing is when it comes to plagiarism, that is similarity index.
Yeah, right. You are right. It's not basically giving the credit to the real author.
Yeah, I understand, but I was only pointing out to the policy that is in place, at least with regards to having some strict measures with regards to academic dishonesty. So I think that's a right step. I would say in that way, because that was not there previously. So in that ways, I think that's something that's good that's happening. But other things, yes, they may still be unresolved. And I think, ma'am, just to add on to,
but definitely it has to be escalated. The problem has to be escalated.
True, ma'am, true. Yeah. True. I think because that may, as he was pointing out, that it may not be documented anywhere. So how does a scholar prove that there was this kind of an arrangement? Whose idea was it, and whether the guide actually copied the idea or is taking credit for that idea? So it may just be informally between the guide and the scholar. So it becomes very difficult to prove whether that kind of nexus is existing. So that's a problem that is prevalent. I do agree with what he says, but then how do you prove that is also one of the issues. Maybe you need to have strict policies in place that can maybe address to a large extent the issues that he's actually trying to point out here. And just to add on
that's really sad.
Yeah. Just to add on to this.
Let's move on. Any questions are there?
Just to add on to this couple of questions that the resource persons, the participants had asked with regards to, one was regards to that infringement. So I just wanted to add, I mean, when you're looking at infringement, they'll be looking at your patent. That means the claim that you have mentioned in your patent, and they will compare it with that particular product over there. So if you say that this is 60% improvement, so then they will have to look whether by mapping the claim and looking at the product, it is actually infringing these elements altogether over there, whether literally or under the doctrine of equivalence. Well, doctrine of equivalence does not exist in India, but that may be one of the ways you can probably look whether it is infringing or not, to practically look at that. So prima facie, that may be one way of how you can address that. That's one of the issues. Just one point that I wanted to add over there. Thank you, ma'am.
True. Any questions on the chat?
Thank you very much, madam. Your session is very informative, madam.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm too much material. I try to
No,
stuff
no, no.
in.
You are putting the things very simple and it can easily understand. Thank you. Thank you very much, madam.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Ma'am, there is one question regarding pre-grant opposition. I think pre-grant opposition, can it be filed till final grant or 6 months from the date of publication?
Pre-grant opposition can be done till the grant. It's open.
Yeah. That's right.
Once it's published, it can be open till the grant of the application.
Yeah. No further
That's
questions.
how it happened, right? With the Pfizer case, we saw Pfizer case. 2007 they filed. 2015 it is rejected. 2020 it was heard by IPAB. About the issue, he filed a pre-grant opposition. After almost 13 years, he filed a pre-grant opposition.
Ma'am,
it has to be before the grant.
Ma'am, is it 6 months from the date of publication or till the grant, whichever is earlier, or it is till the grant?
It is till the grant. Till the grant, pre-grant, right?
Okay.
It's open till grant.
Okay.
Post-grant has time. Post-grant only for 12 months. After the grant, after it is published, granted patent is published, it is only 12 months you can oppose.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Yeah, pre-grant is open up to, as the name indicates, pre-grant. So till the grant.
I believe there are no further questions in the chat
madam,
box.
Can you share your mail ID, madam? If any doubt comes, definitely.
Sure, Doctor. Sure. Please be in touch. Dr. Ratish will give my contact details. He has my contact details.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
I'll share it, ma'am.
So,
Hello.
Yeah.
Next we move on to the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ramni ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you for your valuable session on registration of different form of IP in India. And now I invite Jessin, second semester LLM IP PhD student of IUC IPRS, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, one and all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, madam.
Yeah.
It is my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks to this wonderful session. I would like to thank Dr. Ramani, who is an expert from LexOrbis. She delivered an excellent talk on registration of different form of IP in India. I feel great pleasure to express my view and share my experience on this valuable session. First of all, she specifically mentioned how to file patent application and what are the procedure for granting patent. And she explained its procedures like filing, formal examination, prior art search, publication, substantive examination, grant or refusal, appeal. Later, she discussed how to register copyright application, trademark application, design application, plant varieties protection, etc. And she also pointed out fair use, compulsory license, infringements, and its remedies, and also pointed out landmark judgments in IP laws. And I would like to thank the coordinators of the program, that is a joint venture of IUC IPRS, CUSAT and Attal Academy. I would like to thank Dr. Ms. M. Basi, Director of IUC IPR. Sir, you are always a constant source of inspiration to all of us. Thank you, sir. We especially thank Dr. Asha ma'am and Radish sir for the excellent and with this the program has been coordinated. I would like to thank one and all who are participating in this session. Thank you all.